So here's the situation. Last time I mentioned the problem of supporting the stonework over the door. That layer was just sitting there on top of the door frame, and I didn't want to put a lot more weight on it. As it was, it had already cracked. After considering a few possible solutions, I decided to go very old school with it. At first, I considered a semicircular arch, but the doorway is almost 4 feet wide, which would mean the arch would have to extend at least 2 feet above the original wall line on the inside of the arch, and then the thickness of the arch and making the walls line up and all that would raise it to 3 feet or more, and I didn't want to go that high. So I settled on a catenary arch in order to bring the height down a little bit. To do that, I hung a chain between 2 screws and painted a line along it. I had a little spray paint left over, so I started using that to paint the arch shape over the hanging chain, but I ran out. So I used a paint pen to finish it up, which worked pretty well. That gave me a nice clear line to follow. I then used that line to build a form with scrap wood. I started out doing this the same way I did the pieces to go around the glass blocks. I put sand down first, and then a layer of random stones. This was a kind of a mistake, but fortunately not a critical one. I was figuring that once the mortar set, the whole thing would be basically one piece under compression, and it wouldn't matter. And that's true as far as it goes, but this creates an inside facing which isn't as strong as it could be, and not as appealing to the eye. The arch will actually be 3 arches cross-linked together, 3 layers of stones. This is just one thin layer facing on the inside, so it isn't a structural problem, but it is a cosmetic fault. I got a lot more serious with the rest of it, selecting stones of the right size and shape to form an actual arch. At the corners, I had to cut the stones to fit. To get the fit right, I made a cardboard pattern. Marked around it, and cut the stones to fit. Not perfectly on the line. But actually, that isn't a big problem. Remember, this is all constructed of separate pieces held together by cement and loaded in compression. Once the arch is in place, the joints and the cracks don't really matter. I just need some way to hold it in place until the mortar sets and the arch is placed in the wall. Broken spots like that can be a lot bigger, and as long as they sit one on top of another, it's all fine. So, there. Here's the whole arch, ready for the mortar to fill in the gaps. While the mortar is setting, it's time to knock the cracked stuff out of the way and make a place for it. I cleaned up the edges to make a nice even socket to mount the arch in, but none of those pictures came out very well. Here in a minute you'll be able to see those edges if you look closely. In the meanwhile, a few days having passed, it's time to take the form off of the arch. Looks pretty good. But, as I said earlier, the thing is meant to be loaded in compression, so when I tried to pick it up a tension load, it broke. Still not a problem once it's in place, but it made wrestling it into the space over the door harder, and getting decent pictures of it even more so. First, I had to get it oriented in the loader, and that wasn't too bad. And then I had to cut off the ends of the old rotten rafters to make room to tilt it up under the roof. That was no problem, since the rafters need to be replaced anyway. Here it is, ready to tip up. The boards are a temporary safety precaution, so it won't fall through if I tip it too far. And there it is, from the outside and the inside. Of course, I had to take the boards down, put up temporary forms, build up the stone walls the rest of the way on both sides, pretty much the same stuff as the earlier videos. But there were two more problems. One's easy to explain. The southeast corner of the roof was roughly toe-nailed, and when the rafter failed, it had come apart. I had to pull that back together with a chain and a come-along, some people call that a hand winch, and bolt it together. The other problem is a little harder to explain. If you think about it, when I let the roof back down, there would be nowhere for the jacks to sit, so I had to leave little pockets in the tops of the wall for the jacks, which I can then fill back in later. And that's what I did. You can see here I've got the jacks in their pockets and the mortar spread over the top of the wall, all ready to lower into place. Mixing all that mortar was a tough job, and my concrete mixer broke in the middle of it, which didn't help, but I got it. I've been about a month working on other things, but here's how it all looks today. It's too cold to do the concrete work to fill the gaps and point everything. That will have to wait for spring. But I can do carpentry, so I'm getting started on replacing the rafters. I have the first one done. I doubt the rafter replacement and the roofing is very interesting, but I'll post some pictures of the stages as it comes together. It's taken a while to get this video put together. Happy New Year a little late to everyone.